There are countless different chord combinations, but somehow we still always end up with the same boring progressions. So in this video I want to show you one very easy trick, actually just one note, that will introduce you to a whole new world of R&B progressions. So we're gonna be in B minor today. So the magic note I want to show you is gonna be this A sharp. And if you know your scales, you know that the A sharp actually isn't in the B minor scale. And you can think of it in a few different ways. You could say it's borrowed from the parallel major scale, so B major, which has the A sharp. You could also say it's from the harmonic minor scale, which has the A sharp instead of the A. But actually it doesn't really matter, right? You can just remember that it's the note one semitone below the root note. So now that we know the note, let's build some chords with it. And I think the most common way to use it is in the 5th chord of the scale, which in our case is F sharp minor or F sharp minor 7, because we want to make R&B, so we also want to use chord extensions. We have this A in the chord right here. So let's try and replace it with the A sharp. And that way we turn our minor 7 chord into a dominant 7 chord. And the dominant 7 chord is just a major chord with a minor 7 on top. So we can just raise our 3rd from the minor 7 chord to get this dominant 7. And as you can hear, it immediately gives this more tense, unresolved kind of feeling, which is exactly what we want for these more soulful progressions. So when we hear this, we have a very strong urge to resolve the chord and get back to our 1 chord. Right? It's a very satisfying chord change. Of course, we don't have to go to the 1 chord. We could also go to the 6th chord, for example, or honestly to any chord we want. But the key thing that we want from this chord is just this beautiful, soulful kind of tension, which just works perfectly in R&B progressions. So as you could hear, this works great as just a normal chord in your progression, but this chord and every other chord in this video works really well as a passing chord. And a passing chord is pretty much just a short chord that kind of helps transition from one chord to another. So we found out the change from this dominant 7 chord to the 1 of our scale, the B minor chord, is really beautiful. So we have this 5-1 progression, right? And whenever I hear 5-1, I immediately think of a 2-5-1 progression. If you don't know what a 2-5-1 progression is, it's very common in like jazz music and also of course R&B. And it's pretty much exactly what the name says. It's a progression from the 2 chord to the 5 chord to the 1 chord. So in our case that would be C sharp, F sharp, B, 2, 5, 1. And this works so well because, like I said, the 5-1 progression is just a very satisfying resolution. And if you look closely, the 2 in the context of our F sharp, which is the 5, it's actually the 5th of that F sharp. So technically we have this 5-1 resolution twice in a row, and that's why this 2-5-1 works so well. So we have the B as our destination, we have the F sharp as the 5 before that, and we have the C sharp again as the 5 before the F sharp. And you can use that with every chord. The 1 doesn't actually have to be the 1 of our scale. Like I said, it's only the destination of our progression. So we could take any other chord. Let's take the G major, for example, which is the 6th chord in the context of our B minor scale. But in the context of our 2-5-1 progression, it can be the 1, like the destination we want to go to. So we would take the G major, take the 5th of that, which is the D, and then the 5th of that, which is the A. And that way we can build our 2-5-1, so we would have A, D, G. So in the most simple form, A, D, G. Or G. But yeah, that's what a 2-5-1 is. Let's get back to our example. So again, we want to use this dominant 7 chord and go to our 1 chord. And if we use a 2-5-1 for that, we have the C sharp diminished to our F sharp dominant 7 with our magic A sharp in there, which resolves beautifully to our B minor, in this case a B minor 9. So let's explore this dominant 7 chord a bit more and see how we could modify it. We could, for example, take the C sharp and bring it up 1 semitone. And that way we turn it from a regular dominant 7 chord to a dominant 7 sharp 5. The C sharp is a 5, right? We just bring that up a semitone, which means it's sharp now. The name sounds complicated, but again, it doesn't matter. No one's gonna ask you about the name. So you can just remember dominant 7 chord, bring the 5th up. And as you can see, it has the same kind of feeling and tension as the regular dominant 7 chord. It sounds a bit darker, right? A bit more clustered, a bit more jazzy. And let's try to use that in our progression. We could replace our 2-5-1, for example, and actually use both of our dominant chords. First the regular dominant 7 and then our dominant 7 sharp 5, which also resolves beautifully to our B minor. Okay, so let's use our dominant 7 one last time. And let me show you what happens when we take away the root note. Suddenly we have this A sharp diminished chord, so we can also use our magic note in that context. And again, it has a very similar feeling to the dominant chord, because you know it's almost the same notes. But we have the out of scale note as our root note now, which really like increases the tension to get back to our B, right? So just like the other chords, you can use that as a regular chord or just spice up the progression a little bit and use it as a passing chord. Personally, I think it especially sounds good with guitar progressions. So we have the A sharp diminished 7 to the B minor 7. And actually we could do a 2-5-1 kind of thing again with the C sharp diminished to the A sharp diminished and then to the B minor. The A sharp isn't actually the 5, but like we said, it has kind of the same feeling and purpose as the 5 chord. So now let's get away from our 5 chord a bit and let's see if we can use that A sharp in any other chord. For example, we could go to the 4 chord, E minor or E minor 7. And here we have this B. Let's try to bring that down to the A sharp. So suddenly we have another diminished chord, this time an E diminished or E half diminished if we add the minor 7. A very beautiful, kind of jazzy sound, which also works very well as a passing chord. Because again, our magic A sharp wants to resolve to our B minor chord. So let's try another chord, maybe the 6th chord. G major or G major 7. And again we have this B in here. So let's try to replace that with our A sharp. And here we suddenly have this very dark, sad kind of feeling, right? So you could add that when you want to make your progression more melancholic. so I think you get the idea, right? Grab any minor scale, find the note one semitone below the root note, and play around with bringing that into your chord progression. That way you can make interesting, soulful chords, and especially like chord runs and passing chords. Of course, that's not the only out of scale note you can use. You can make any note work in the right context, but I feel like this note that I showed you in this video is like the easiest and most effective to kind of get into the world of out of scale notes. So play around with that. Let me know if this video was helpful, and yeah, thanks for watching.